All right, we'll call the meeting to order. We have the minutes of our February meeting before us. Prakash and I were astounded that we haven't met since February. He thought he was here that day, but told him it was a cutout. So, did everyone have a chance to review those minutes? If so, do I have a motion for approval? Move to approve. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we have a full crew here today except for Tony Grinberg. And before us, we have an application from Central at the Horizon, new construction at 11 12th Street North.
Good morning, Chair and board members.
Good morning.
So the project proposed at 11 12th Street North is a new construction project. This is for a residential building. The property is bound by 11th Street, 12th Street, and then on the south side, Northern Pacific Avenue. Currently, there's no building on the property. I think back in about 2018 or 19 or 20, there was an apartment previously on the property that was demolished, and then prior to that, it was an old gasification plant, so it has a bit of a history. The project being proposed has an investment of anticipated to be about $93 million, which exceeds the minimum threshold of $100 per square foot at about $262 per square foot. So here's an image of the site, just showing it's been turfed for a while, just gets mowed. One thing to note is there's relatively new infrastructure bounding the property. So recently, in the last several years, both 11th and 12th Street, as well as Northern Pacific Avenue, have had new total reconstruction projects. So the streets are brand new here and provide a bit more parking than they had previously as well, with diagonal parking just adjacent on the streets on either side, as you can see. So the project proposed is a residential project with main floor parking, just due to its history. There's no work that's going to be in the ground, no underground parking. This is main floor parking. As you can see, the amenities proposed for the site front Northern Pacific Avenue, so an intention to activate that street. The floors, you'll see kind of interior courtyards. So 5-story buildings, so second floor layout on the left and third through fifth floor on the right. And some renderings for the project. So the applicant's proposing this 5-story project with about 262 residential units that will be offered at about 60% of area median income. Oops, elevations. So these are elevations facing the street. And then this elevation on the north side is facing interior, and so there's no street frontage, and there's an alley on the north side where there would be access. Access into the building may change. I know the applicant is trying to reach out to adjacent property owners. There is, I'm going to jump back to an aerial image, so you can see up here, hopefully see my cursor, where there's an alley here, and so the applicant is trying to coordinate with those property owners on just on the alley and whether there's potential for vacation of the alley or shared agreement. And so I think access point right now is off of the north, but could change as well and maybe take access off of a different location in one of those streets. So right now there's no building on the property, but for tax purposes. So future forward, if this project is approved, and if there were no other incentives or anything, and if and when that Renaissance Zone benefit comes off, the estimate using current mill levy and the estimated property value would be about $1.4 million annually. Rachel Creek with the Annex Group is here if you have questions, and staff's recommendation is up on your screen. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. I saw it last night, but I can't locate it this morning, of how many outdoor parking spots there will be. I see it mentions the indoor ground level. That sounds right.
Yep, there's 250 spaces and 12 are located along that alley on the very north side.
Okay. And you feel that's adequate parking for the structure?
At least a 1-to-1 parking ratio in our developments, and with the ample on-street parking, you know, I'd driven the site last night and hardly any of the spaces were being utilized. Also good proximity to public transportation, should satisfy our need.
Matt bus goes right past there?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Also, when the study was done, do you know offhand what the AMI, the median income is for our area?
I've got the detailed market study. I'd be happy to circulate to staff members after this. I don't have that off the top of my head.
I'm
but
just
we are
curious.
targeting, you know, 60% AMI for all units.
Okay.
And the market study did indicate with the capture rates, very strong demand in the area.
Okay. Did anyone have any questions? Prakash?
Your report answered somewhat of it.
For sure.
The number 3, high priority land use, it's the first time I'm seeing anybody scoring 0. So can you explain a little bit about it?
You know, we've been long talking about the scoring, and it is one where when we have a residential project, it really doesn't fit within that criteria, but we understand and how our development plan is proposed that all projects can't be all things. It can't always, you know, be a mixed-use project. It can't always be, you know, a specialty retail. And so we have been consistent in scoring in that way when it's an all-residential project. And so I would say, you know, as we've brought forward before, the scoring doesn't necessarily reflect the support for the project. And so staff is still supportive of the project, and it is just one criteria within the whole kind of scoring system.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, just a quick question. So with the new land development code, would you say some of these scoring things would be modified? Because part of it is this increases the density in the downtown, which we've been talking about for a long time. So that's the first thing. And then a question for you, the rental costs, is there going to be any like low income or affordable housing in the project, or is it all just market rate housing?
The 60% AMI level is affordable, so it will be 100% affordable units.
So can you just give me an example of how that would work, I guess, and maybe the staff can too, but just how like a person, as far as affordable housing, how that would work?
So the area median income, it takes that and takes the percentage of that, so it lowers basically what that threshold of income is required to be able to achieve the rents that are established.
Thank you.
All right.
Can you
Mayor?
talk, and I'm sorry for asking 2 questions at once, but can you talk a little bit about that, and maybe Nicole?
Yeah, and then maybe the applicant, if you will, if I'm hearing your question a little bit more, in terms of qualifying for that housing, and, you know, basically what I understand is the tax credits are offsetting the revenue, if you will, for the property owner, as that tenant then can qualify and pay less for rent than the average, than the floor market or market rate. So maybe if you just want to explain a little bit how the tax credits work and the offloading the 60%, or maybe, sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot, and we can always circulate later, but I think that was the nature of your question, Commissioner. And then in terms of the land development code, yes, absolutely. On the next item on the agenda, I was going to mention, as we look at incentive packages as a whole, and with the land development code, starting in November, we'll have a little bit more outreach to you, and we'll have some more in-depth analysis, if you will, on those things.
So can I, just one more thing, and then I'll stop talking so much. But the location is great, especially we have, you know, the affordable housing for seniors, we have waiting lists. So, and I do think this would be a great location because you can walk to a lot of the things. Plus, it's on the bus road. So I think that it will be a very popular location. So thank you.
Yeah, and I would just say absolutely. We have many studies that show us the need for affordable housing downtown, or even just more units in downtown are as a need, and so, absolutely. And I would just say, not to critique this application, but I think with the downtown in focus or that mixed-use level, we've had this discussion before, if there was retail on that ground floor, if there was something related to grocery, daycare, job services, whatever those uses are. And we're still very thankful of this project. That optimal, what the growth plan talks to is that optimal would be even more awesome, And so that's the type of, for that scoring component, that's kind of the things we're looking for.
Mayor, did you still have a?
Nicole,
answer?
the downtown vacancy rates are high. You're putting in a big new unit. This is a big unit for this. But is more affordability is what we need in the community. And I think when we did the InFocus study at one time, we thought over 5,000 people would move downtown. Just part of that, where we're having some of that happen. And I think we used to talk about gentrification, where we're losing many of our people downtown. This will help fill that void and take care of it.
Yes,
That's why I just
absolutely.
didn't understand the high priority land use. It looks like it would hit there. And 93 million is a pretty big investment for the downtown. That does help. It's almost like a data center kind of thing in a sense.
Right.
But where that's quite a bit of investment. When would you start the build?
So right now, we have our tax credit application in. I believe that we'll hear officially on award in October, November. So once that commences, then we'll move fully into our design and permitting process. So at that point, as quickly as we can get permits. So
Thank you.
Any help you guys can have there.
Any other questions from the group or comments?
Move to approve.
We have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
So move.
We have a motion and second. Discussion? If none, roll call vote, please.
Pipcorn,
Aye.
Madell,
Aye.
Matthew,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Mahoney,
Aye.
Brashani,
Yes.
Mather.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Excellent. We look forward to seeing that as it's being raised. And did you have further comments on future board governance?
Yeah, I was just here to answer questions and maybe to
Nicole.
provide a little bit more background on the next agenda item. And so for those that, this might be new conversation to some of our newer board members, but those that have been on the board have for a couple decades now, might remember some of the discussions we've been having about trying to simplify the application process for applicants so that they're, like, for instance, if they're looking for incentives, like this item was heard yesterday at the EDIC meeting, and, are there ways that we can simplify the staff review as well as the applicant's process when they're looking at achieving and receiving approvals. And so on top of it, maybe it dawned on me, since we hadn't met since February, just to provide a brief update on maybe some of the news articles and things you've been hearing or seeing. Staff met with as part of the governance review. The city commissioners have been meeting to talk about additional efficiencies in the government processes. And for instance, we have some 21 boards of volunteer boards, citizen advisory boards, and we're starting to relook at, most of these boards were set up 20, 25 years ago. And when we aligned the city's mission with the governance boards, there's been some review of that. So we met with the assistant city administrator and myself met with the city commission back in April as a review of all of those boards and commissions. Half of those boards sit with the planning department, which is why I've been at the table with some of these discussions. And in our analysis, we look at the authority and the mission of the Renaissance Zone Authority, and then we look at the authority and mission of the Economic Development Incentive Committee, and there's some overlap there. And so one proposal we had is to unite those boards or align those boards so they're more in congruence. And you've had some of those joint meetings with the Land Development Code guidance or the growth plan guidance. And so we look forward to more of those conversations where we bring that full group together to provide a little bit more oversight and guidance and streamlining processes. So it's not, in my mind, the memo in your packet isn't to eliminate your positions. It's really to align and some governance efficiency. So if you're okay with the concept, I would like to take your support of that concept, and I'm here to answer any questions, to report back to the City Commission as one of several recommendations on efficiencies in government. So I'm glad to answer any questions.
So I guess just, this is a request to investigate that possibility? Is that
Yeah,
kind of what you're saying?
and probably we would work with our city attorney, and the Century Code, and which we've done some of that preliminary work, and we would pursue on with this recommendation to the City Commission to, further review the combining of the boards.
And this was talked about even 2-3 years ago?
Yeah, it's been talked about for some while, from a staff
Just maybe moving
perspective.
forward a little.
Yeah, from a staff perspective, we're reviewing, like this application you saw today, we're reviewing between the site plan process, the pre-application process, the Economic Development Incentive Committee, we're reviewing at many different spaces, and it's not really streamlined from an applicant perspective, and they get confused along the way, so we're trying to help with that as well.
Mayor?
Well, I kind of like the two separate boards because Renaissance Zone is very pure in what we approve. I mean, we look at certain criteria, there's certain things that happen. And this board, in my mind, it purely just looks at the Renaissance Zone benefit. Economic development, typically we see economic incentive, we see TIFs, pilots, we have different ways of doing taxable things, and it's a different board. I think each board has its strengths in the people we have on it, and I would hate to lose some of that experience and leadership. So I'm not quite sure. It almost sounds if you combine something, you lose some people that are presently serving. So that would be my only concern. We have good people on both boards that seem to stay pure in looking at what the benefit is. And I kind of have liked that. Dave and I have on the economic incentive. Kind of we look at things purely just from the incentives that we can give out there. But the Renaissance Zone is it's state mandated what we can give out for benefit to any builder or developer. So help me understand how you're not going to change the board membership.
Yeah, so it's not about getting rid of any of the board members. It's about combining the efforts. And so the applicant and staff are, like yesterday's meeting would have included you all as well as the concept. And so yesterday, for instance, we only had 2 people show up from the Citizen Advisory Group, or 3. It's such a small board. And the EDIC board is advisory to you, the City Commission, whereas that Renaissance Zone Authority is specific to the Renaissance Zone. But the 2 have to work together as we see moving forward. And so that's some of the work of the Land Development Code process, and looking at combining those incentives. We very much value the knowledge base and expertise of the board members here, the board members of EDIC. We need that review. But as we look at the scoring system and the purpose and intentions, we very much, as staff, lean on both boards. And so staff is, if you will, running between boards and trying to get all of that mixture of information in a very discombobulated way, and we're trying to synthesize that in a more robust way.
Okay, I understand. Go ahead.
So real quick, it's combining efforts, but we have the same people answering a lot of the similar questions when they come to us for these requests, and so to just have one stop, but the main challenge, I think, is to make sure that we comply with state law,
Yeah.
because this is a legislator-created thing, and so we have to make sure that we're doing the things correctly. But in my perspective, we would be combining our efforts, and I think it would be much more, we have lots of really good people on both boards, and so I think it would be quite impressive And I think that people would have a lot of more tough questions because of all the people. Instead of having to do it just one time, instead of going through it several times. So I think in many ways, this will be beneficial. So that's my perspective. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Nicole? Thank you, Nicole. Just one comment, Megan, we were at the event this summer, the land use group that we met with. Any comments on was there good, oh, I'm sorry, I should have asked you for that.
No, thank you.
Was it worth their efforts to have the public meetings and?
Yes, no, thank you for that, absolutely. And so from the Land Development Code perspective, let me give you a quick update, and I meant to do that as part of this. So yes, they will be, look to your email. We're going to try to get some placeholders on your time for the first or second week of November is when the consultant team will be back. And so yes, the participation this summer with the Land Development Code was very robust. Good attendance, and really our audience at this point in time is folks that are in the industry and those that are maybe really on the ground of understanding of the city governance process. That visioning perspective where you get a lot more outreach from the I would say citizens, the homeowners, et cetera, quality of life advocates, if you will, was at that growth planning stage. So this is really in the regulating pieces of the growth plan that we're trying to get to. And so as you can imagine, most people don't want to talk about codes and regulations at a very, kind of building code level. So we're starting to get into that stage of work. Right now, the consultants were back here in last month, and what they're doing right now is really meeting with developers, some of our folks that are building. The city of Fargo is blessed with local developers, and so that really gives us an opportunity to meet one-on-one with the developers to really learn their business plan, learn more about their operations and needs. And so what our consultants have been doing is really meeting with them one-on-one to learn more about what they need and what kind of issues they might have in long-term economic development aspects, and also a lot of the things on learning about where our code today is deficient on the things that they need for future. And so those conversations have been going well. And so right now, the consultants are working on that initial draft, if you will. And so we'll start to see some of that in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And so we'll start running that by you all. And we do, there's a third piece though of that combined economic development incentive aspect of how it all works together. So for instance, the growth centers, the neighborhood centers, the regional centers, how do you get, inspire that level of investment? And where we're so dependent on your expertise on the Renaissance Zone Authority is really what is happening in downtown, and the work of the Renaissance Zone Authority and the Renaissance Zone Incentive is what we want to replicate across the city in other, neighborhood centers, growth centers. And so what our consultants say to help us wrap around what we're trying to do, how do we get more of downtown elsewhere in the city? And how do you combine those efforts, whether it's city, private partnership, investment, further into the city as a whole? And so right now they're looking at some different models and analysis to present some things for your consideration.
Okay. Well, they're a good group, and they ask good questions. They were asking some of us participants about our neighborhoods and walkability and what we like and don't like. So they're thorough. I really enjoyed it. Anyone else? Comments or questions? Thank you, Nicole. I should have known that was under your purview. If none, our next meeting is October 22nd. Do we have any projects in the works that you know of? Okay, so it's hit and miss. Meeting is adjourned then.